Okay. It's time for daily game design. Oh, was it? It's Friday night. I woke up at I slept around 10:30. Woke up at 11. I wonder if this is when I first had the idea. But for some reason, the time period around the Grapes of Wrath, the Great Depression, that big move out west, with like all the people running to California to look for jobs and stuff. For some reason, that setting all of a sudden became interesting, and I thought certainly there's a game in there somewhere. And I also wondered if there were any games already made with that theme. In fact, let me go look again. I think there is one called The Great Depression. Games about the Great Depression. Yeah, I think this is the list I saw. Stock market game. I don't know. Um, Mayor of Hooverville. This is one of the thematic elements that I was starting to learn about Hooverville. There were these big encampments or um, like settlements of people, and I think that was one name for them. Lost your job. Yeah, some man are gathering water or supplies for water, something. Huh. It looks like a self-publication, probably. Or what is this? The New Deal game. Don't know what that is. Game of politics. Land of the free. American politics during the Great Depression. This would be one of those more like political simulation kind of ideas. So what I wanted to do was think about capturing the movement of people during the Great Depression. I've been kind of interested. Um, I've been kind of interested in two worker placement areas. That was one of the initial thoughts, and I actually saw it happen in How to Save a World. I think there was another game too recently that I realized um, probably has a similar thing. Like if you place over here, you can only do stuff over here and then only move around over here or whatever it is. Um, that was one of the initial thoughts I had for Sugar Shack too. It was going to be a limitation on what worker placements spots locations were available to you based on where that worker is currently. So that was an early idea for Sugar Shack, and actually what led to some of the early mechanics around movement and being on the road. So when you would step toward things and you would take a turn to do that, and obviously like being on a path or on a route, you're just limited by that by that connected set of locations. Um, anyway, for some reason, I started picturing how there's like the Dust Bowl, Oklahoma, on the East Coast, And then there's like Paradise in California, and that was a tough road, and resources were tight, and your priorities would probably shift. Or if you're an individual, life is going to be very different on the road than if you're with a family. What are you willing to do when you start seeing that resources are dwindling? So I started doing some reading. I started asking Google Gemini about that time period. So at that point, that's when I started like brainstorming mechanics. I've been playing a lot of the White Castle. I actually really, really like the White Castle, and how in that game you only get 9 turns. The whole game, at least in the base game, is 9 turns. You get so much game out of that, and it's AP City. Like it is really, really easy to just overanalyze that game. I'm not great at it. I've been scoring better though, starting to understand how the combos work in that game. But anyway, what I started realizing is that there is design space in the White Castle that could be translated really easily, really nicely to an idea where the route matters. Because in the White Castle, you have, actually, maybe I'll go there. I wonder if it's my turn. It's probably not. But I've been playing games with oh, it is my turn. It is my turn. One second. Yeah, so I've been playing. I think this is my third or fourth game with Andrew, and I've been doing better. Like I'm starting to see the relationships between working in different areas. So one of the main action types is to move up through this castle. And the castle, the way it works is that you have to pay to place the guy in the castle. You have to pay money for that. And then from there, you have to play pearls. Pearls help you advance toward this peak up here. So it's 3 wide at the base, 2 wide in the middle, and then 3 wide. Then this peak up here with just one card, one location. And on the way up, you can pick any of the 3 at the bottom, and you can pick either of the 2, and it doesn't really matter where you're coming from. It just matters what bonuses you want. Well, I thought, what if I basically take a similar system, place it on its side, and then have the movement from Oklahoma to California, so that you're moving across and you're following a path. And anyway, so starting with that idea, also I really like dice placement games, so I thought there might be a cool way to do either dice placement and deck building, or dice placement and hand management. So I'm loving multi-use cards out of like Arnak and SETI. I love how tight this is. I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have like a 12-turn game, just limited at 12 turns, and see how much game you could get out of that. But what's cool about the setting is that, oh, actually, I think I might be in a little bit of trouble here. I think I was hoping to have that red die. What did he do? Where did I go? This was my first turn. Was it? Yeah, it must have been. Oh, that suddenly doesn't feel familiar, though. This is the second dice turn. What in the world? I definitely would not have done this. I think I was like desperate for stuff, but this doesn't... What is happening? Is there another placement that I'm missing? Because I don't remember doing this at all. Oh, I guess I took a hmm. Oh, it's his turn. But I took a wait, no, I went first. Oh, of course. I took the card that was there. Okay. Yeah, so I took a courtier action really early. That was my first action. I replaced the card, and I was looking at this card thinking, this is wrong. I would not have done this on my first turn. Interesting that he's going for resources. What did he go for? He went for food, I guess. Food and pearl. Hmm. Well, I don't have any money. There's no great um hmm. Yeah, I don't have any money. I wonder what would be the best. There's no great gardening action, I feel, right now, because I don't have money to afford these. I could come over here. So I have 3 right now. It could be cool just to make sure I get resources. If I get a buck from here. Because, yeah, I also don't get any money this time from my lantern actions. That stuff. Oh, interesting. These cards are different too. This one is different. I'm not used to the last couple games I've played. This action was to activate one of these 3 personal board. I forget what they call it. Personal something. Um, so I could get $1, and I think I actually need to get some money. Be kind of crazy just to load up on money right here. This is my second turn. Hmm. I think I should come back to this. Well, so it looked to me like there's at least in some very, very like in superficial research, just like Googling a little bit. Let me look one more time. Great Depression board game. So there's a list that wasn't very fruitful. Board games during the Great Depression. Great Depression board game. Let's see what this is. Hmm. 4 different game styles. Practice and application task cards. No idea. I don't see anything similar here. Bringing history home. Here's another. Teacher explains this to students. We're going to play a game that simulates the Great Depression. You and a partner will get a card each round that will tell you your job and the amount of income you have earned. During the 4 rounds, your job situation and amount of income may change. Your income will be divided into 5 categories, okay? What decisions do you make? don't think this is anything like what we're looking for. Surviving the Great Depression. For $160, this is an excellent board game called Surviving the Great Depression. Play as a person in 1930s trying to make your way into the economically challenged America. This game is like a combination between Monopoly and Life. For a limited time only, buy for half off of the original steal of a deal price. What in the world? $320 was the original price for this game. Unbelievable. Jesters Inc. Maine. Wow. That's amazing. Facebook page. Jesters Inc. What in the world? This is amazing. Should we look at their YouTube channel? Six, 11, 12 years ago. Well, anyway, it looks like they had ideas. They definitely wanted to make something interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, so I doubt there's anything quite like what I'm imagining. What I'm imagining is a blend. It's very much a Euro game, pretty abstract. Not a lot of random events, mostly an efficiency puzzle. And what I'm thinking is to do something like take the White Castle and turn the castle itself on its side. And thinking about how to represent the Dust Bowl area. So the Dust Bowl area, and then travel across the US from there to California. So it looks like I don't have a high resolution image. Huh. Is it? I don't know, let me see. So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna like at least bring in this map and think a little bit about travel first of all. Okay, is that slightly better? So I don't know where actual Route 66 is. Okay, here's one of the things I asked Gemini. So what would be considered like what were the most commonly used routes to California? So the Dust Bowl migration. So one of the cool things that I think we can have players moving, essentially the idea would be to move as many character cards or to move as many people across as possible in a short amount of time, or with very few actions. But an interesting feature of that time period was that you had some people going across in cars, like the jalopy was. For some, I think that's when the jalopy maybe became famous or something. Anyway, so we have cars, and then we have also trains, and so it's interesting thinking about when you would have, when you would be moving your people. I don't know what to call them yet. Meeples, travelers. What you would be moving them when you would either choose to move them across in a vehicle or in a train. And so, because that was also the time of hobos. So, like, hobos would jump on trains and get as far as they could, and then maybe they'd get kicked off by the guards on the train. You can also have people spend a little money to get on the train. So both of those groups are traveling faster, but the hobo is obviously at risk of something, of getting caught, and the traveler who paid probably is not able to take, like, if you're traveling in a car, you're able to take a lot more stuff with you. So if you're a hobo, you didn't pay, so you got somebody who's trying to kick you off, and there's not a whole lot you can carry. So one of the other interesting things is eventually in that time period, there started to be like a kind of border protection, I think. So you could get caught at the border, and if you're coming into California with nothing, you might actually get rejected. I forget what that was called. So I actually talked through a whole bunch of ideas yesterday. And so now I have to go back through and kind of look for the border stuff. What is this? As migrants approach California, police officers, sometimes illegally, set up blockades at the border to turn back anyone who looked poor. Bum blockades. Let's look that up. Okay, bum blockades was a 1936 effort by the Los Angeles Police Department to stop impoverished migrants, primarily Dust Bowl refugees, from entering California by setting up checkpoints at state borders, turning away or arresting poor individuals to protect local relief resources strained by the Great Depression. So how perfect of a mechanic is that? So, or I mean, just a historical thematic application. Because what we have then is we have people traveling across, they're taking stuff with them, and they're taking money with them. And the stuff you can imagine would be stuff of value. It could be like one of the things I talked with Gemini for quite a bit about was like heirlooms. So families traveling across with earrings and rings and gold and dime, whatever stuff. So they're of course trying to get to California with that stuff, and that will raise their value at the border. Of course, they're also able to like work, do odd jobs, sell off stuff to get money on the way. Maybe that money is something they're gonna be able to show when they get to the border, or they're gonna have to use that money to like buy resources. So you've got these people traveling across, they've got stuff with them, they've got money. Their goal is to have some minimum amount of that when they reach California so they're not turned away. Anyway, the more I thought about like the obstacles, the efficiency problems of traveling, especially when you now have two different modes of transportation with different things you need to care about, somehow, as I was thinking about it, that's when I saw how in the White Castle you're moving across. It's very expensive to move up the White Castle, but then of course once you get to the end, that's when the biggest payoffs are. at the top of the castle, and it just made perfect sense that you have people, you have travelers moving across the country, moving into different spaces, following different routes, and they have to be worth something by the end. And if they are, if you manage to keep them going and keep all their resources with them, by the time they get to California, then they're going to be like high value travelers. And that just, wow, like that's perfect. So they get into California because they meet some minimum threshold, whereas everybody else, maybe they still get points as they get stuck along the way, or they kind of break down if they run out of stuff, or as far as they get. I mean, they're still worth points. This is also like the White Castle. The if they enter the castle, they're worth a point. If they climb to the first tier, they're worth 3, and then 6, and then 10 points. So depending on how far they climb up, they're worth some number of points. That also translates perfectly, excuse me, to this setting, to this theme. Because they're trying to get as far as they can, but eventually some of them, they just kind of run out of resources and they have to stop and camp out wherever they are. Maybe that's where they settle, maybe that's where they find little jobs with meager incomes for their families. You can see, like, the more we kind of look at the problems, then like the mechanics really start making sense very early. I mean, especially because, as I said, I'm really interested in the tightness of the White Castle, in multi-use cards, in thinking about, in dice placement is also a White Castle feature. Well, so then I started wondering about dice and cards, and how in this game I like hand management a lot. And hand management is a style where you have, actually I was playing Lewis and Clark, the Expedition on BGA. I was playing solo recently. Very, very cool. I mean, I think it's pretty neat. I think there are definitely complaints about it, but it's a pretty neat hand management game, because you get the same cards round to round, and you just add to that pool of cards. So it's like engine building in that sense, but you're hand building. You're just getting stronger and stronger cards that let you do more and more stuff. And as you spend those cards, they get kind of discarded to your play area, and you get to choose when to refresh and when to pull them back. You know, maybe you just run out of actions, or maybe you just want to get your most valuable cards back. So then you can camp in the game. You're moving along the river, and you can just decide to camp. That's how you refresh. That's how you get your cards back. So I really like that type of game. I like the problem of, like, when is the right time to play this card? I think that's a pretty neat problem. And yeah, so I think in this case, I was thinking about what are the different kinds of actions you would want to be able to do. So I was listing them with Gemini. Yeah, a card based related to resources, and that would be like drafting a die and placing a die. Another would be how to like gaining more travelers, or having those travelers interact with their locations. That's another thing you'd want to be able to do. And then also just traveling, like straight up traveling, whether you're traveling on the train or on the jalopy. I was trying to think of one more, because I feel like 4 cards is a much better starting point than 3. I also don't know about, like, drafting more cards. I feel like, well, I think I have a weird like migraine thing going on because I don't feel this tired, but I feel like something is going on kind of nervous system wise up in my neck. What I just thought of is what if we haven't talked about hand management much or improving the cards or adding to the number of cards in players' hands. I'm just now thinking that part of acting with a location on en route could be choosing whether or not to draft the card that makes up a location. So maybe I should, I'm gonna, okay, I actually want to make this, like, without thinking a whole lot about what the actual route is gonna be for all these different things. Like, for sure you're gonna be going from, let's say, Oklahoma City over to LA. So the route, for sure there'd be a route like, let me get the size. So let's say there's a route through, I don't know, let's say it's something like that. I have no idea. I don't know where Route 66 goes. But that's why I just kind of wish there was a really obvious way to find. I guess I probably could. Route 66. I know for sure there's a game about Route 66 itself. Okay, so I guess I wasn't that off actually. Because it starts here, we got Oklahoma City. It does a little bit through, it probably doesn't drop down as, yeah, let me, how do I delete this? Just like that. Anyway, this is not super important. But let me just look one more time actually. Okay, so it comes through, jumps up to, looks like, where'd that go? Okay, so this is kind of weird that it takes up all that. Okay, so Oklahoma City, across the Panhandle, looks like you jump up to Santa Fe, across up to this area of Arizona, and then right through here to LA. Did I get it blindly? Almost. Okay. What about the Santa Fe Railroad? Let's look up that one. Santa Fe line, train, Great Depression. So where did this railway go? Remembering the Santa Fe Railway. So Oklahoma, where's Oklahoma City? Somewhere over here. Hmm. So let's see, 5 stops on the Jalopy route. Amarillo, Texas, Albuquerque, Flagstaff, Mojave Desert, Needles. Okay. Um, Major rail hub. Okay, water stop, Barstow. Heavy police presence. Okay, so there's Route 66, Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. Oh, so basically followed the same path. It's a primary line for hobos and solo migrants. It was heavily policed by bulls, railroad guards, especially division points like Winslow, Arizona, and Barstow, California. Okay. If your game allows for a northern starting point. Yeah, I guess that's a question. Is this really focused on just one route? Or does it potentially split? Yikes! So the Sunset route it was easier to hop freights here in winter, but the desert stretches between El Paso and Yuma were deadly. If you were kicked off the train in the middle of nowhere, that's insane. So, well, I think I guess this would be a little less interesting if yeah, so I guess the Santa Fe just literally just paralleled Route 66. Let me see. Route 66 and Santa Fe. Railroad map. I wonder if they can show them together. Let's say 1930s. Not sure I understand what's going on here. So is that the name? It's the name of one railway then. So it was all the ATSF was one of the largest Class 1 railroads in the United States between 1859 and 1996. Intermodal freight transport at various times operated an airline. Oh, so the Santa Fe was the company or something? The railroad was chartered in February 1859 to serve the cities of Atchison and Topeka, Kansas, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. The railroad reached the Kansas-Colorado border in 1873 and Pueblo, Colorado in 1876. Was the railroad first being built? Oh, cool. Many of the tracks were laid directly over the wagon ruts of the Santa Fe Trail. In 1869, the first general office building of the company was built in Topeka. This building also served as a passenger station and freight depot. That's so smart. Oh, interesting. Despite being chartered to serve the city, the railroad chose to bypass Santa Fe due to the engineering challenges of the mountainous terrain. In 1880, a branch line from Lamy, I don't know how to say that, New Mexico, brought the Santa Fe Railroad the 20 miles to its namesake city. It continued to connect with the Southern Pacific at Deming. The system was eventually expanded with branch lines into California, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Illinois. Oh, interesting. It reached Arizona and California by acquiring control of the western portion of the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad in 1880. It reached Chicago by acquiring... Oh, wow. So they bought up a bunch of railroad stuff. So Santa Fe is kind of the company. It's amazing. They're still talking about this in the 1980s. They were talking about merging. 1995. Wow. Oh, I've seen BNSF. It's crazy. Like, these systems are still running today. How insane is that? That's pretty cool, actually. So what's the map I could use? That's the question. Because Oklahoma... I mean, I guess they just said it's pretty much parallel. Where is it? So I guess... I mean, this whole thing's going to be really abstracted, so... my thinking is to have... Why is it not changing? connected. So let's say these kind of go together, right? This is not going to look interesting at all right now. I think a big challenge would be figuring out how to represent this visually. So I think the main, like there would pretty much be like a hub concept. So say these are essentially parallel, just forgetting that they could be other things right now. But we would break these up into locations, or like there would be kind of nodes that people are traveling to. This is where I'm not sure I have a clear idea of where it could go. So one thought I had was that that the railroad only has, let me segment it like this first of all. So the railroad has only two main stops, it kind of ends over here, whereas there would be definitely more stops through here. So I think it starts, say starts Oklahoma City. I think there was one in Texas. Where's Amarillo? Where was I going? Sorry, I got distracted. Amarillo. So yeah, that's like center of the panhandle, east to west. So I've got one in there, right here. And then Santa Fe would be another one. Be somewhere like right here. And then Flagstaff would be up over here. Right. Okay, so it is right above Phoenix, which actually helps visually. I mean, like with segmenting things here. That's pretty good. And then there's the border check. The border check is over here. And then I guess they would both be aiming. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stops. Maybe add one more just to see if that would be good fit later. And see, the main difference is that obviously train travel is going to get you there a lot faster, but there need to be some really challenging trade-off type decision making. There need to be some really challenging trade-off decisions. If I go on the train, this is going to happen, but I get this. If I drive, then this is probably going to happen, but at least I get this. And that's actually really nicely, pretty evenly spaced as well. So what I'm picturing is something like, it would help if there were other, maybe some other parallel routes. I'm gonna add this guy. So I guess I need to do, what is it, 2.5 by 3.5? Okay, fix the corners. Because I really like the choices in the White Castle. So it could be that you go like north or south, something like that. Definitely this whole map would need to be abstracted somehow because... Oh, actually maybe not. Let's just say... because they would kind of naturally, these cards naturally align. Like this certainly feels like there are not enough options here, but this is the kind of setup that I was imagining, in the sense that you take what's happening in the White Castle and you flip it on its side, and then you're moving across it from Oklahoma to California. It is kind of interesting that there is yeah, we have this historical situation, these parallel lines that trains, cars, everything is heading that way. And these are pretty nicely aligned, kind of like they're doing. I kind of wish it made sense to have, let's say, 3 cards in some locations. And I'm not sure thematically why that would work. But I would need to change, actually I'm going to change this already. So I know this is not going to be like geographically accurate, but so it would have to be something like it starts, let me draw out this one. It starts here. It starts here. And then it connects here. Right? And then starts and then connects here. And so of course this is not geographically accurate, but the indication is that if you travel by train, you get access to these cards. And if you travel just these 4 cards. Here, let me adjust where this thing is actually. Okay, so it just shows that where these 2 link up, that's where yeah, that's where where you end your movement, you could, or if you're currently, if you have a traveler in that location, then they can interact with that location. Also thinking something like having a dice pool that counts as resources over here in the dust bowl. And as people draft them, after they use them, they get sent to California. So what you would have is a pool of dice over here on the eastern end. So in the Dust Bowl area, you'd have a pool of dice. Players are drafting those dice to either use them for their values, which would be like, let's say they use a value 4 die for water. So I think you'd be spending water by ticking down the die. Or you could place the die in some area with that certain value in order to get a certain effect. So I think you would get both dice as like activating locations because of their value, and you would get dice that represent counters that you would just, they would be a resource that you would count down. So I think over here you would have a dice pool, and as players draft them, they move from the Dust Bowl onto the player boards or however that would work. And whenever the players are done with those dice go to California. And it's kind of like they become part of the reward for getting to California. But this also indicates the depletion of resources in the Dust Bowl. So I think that'd be a cool like timer of the game. It'd be a cool way to like pressure people to leave, as there are fewer and fewer resources in that area, and you're less likely to get a whole bunch of something you need. You might be more likely to get it out on the road, or if you're starting to deliver people into California, you can get the resources from the new dice pool in California. I think that sounds really cool. So depleting resources in the Dust Bowl area, it's kind of cool thematically. And then having more resources in California. The only issue there, I guess, is that you still wouldn't have a ton of resources, because it was pretty clear, at least from the Grapes of Wrath book, novel, that there wasn't much for people in California either. There was like some very small number of jobs available, and like 100,000 times that, or 100 times that many people showed up. So for every one job, there were 100 people looking for it. Something insane like that. So these dice that are going to California would also tend to be scarce. For some reason they would be scarce, or mechanically somehow they would also be scarce. But that's the way to move to show that resources are dwindling in the Dust Bowl. Because what I'm thinking is, throughout the game, you would try to get as many people on the road as possible. And at some point, you would abandon the idea of getting more people on the road, and you just want to finish the trip for as many people as you have on the road. If you spend too much time getting people on the road throughout the game, then they're all going to be very low scoring, because they're not all going to be able to move. How are you doing, Legends? If you find somebody famous like that, let me know. Let me see them too. But you might be interested in this one. I'm working on a concept about the Great Depression and people moving across from Oklahoma to California. I want it to feel as tight as the White Castle and have some similar mechanics, actually. Probably more thematic than the White Castle, actually. By the way, were you at Armchair today, or are you going over at some point? Because I think I'm gonna rest a little bit. I might stop over there for a few minutes. Then I think I'm gonna join a Christmas party at a church. Anyway, I think there's some real, like, as dumb as this looks right here, and as much as I don't really like that each location just has, you know, maybe 2 options of things to choose from, I think the fundamental ideas are already kind of interesting. And then it's figuring out, what does hand management look like? What does multi-use look like? Um, okay, cool. I want to sleep off a little bit of a weird migraine, but I am thinking to go over. Actually, right now. So I think I'm gonna head out. I've been streaming for just a little bit over an hour. So I'll rest for a few minutes, then I may see you over there. Anyway, so I'm excited about this. I feel like there's some interesting potential in mashing together some of these mechanics. And just thematically, I think it's really evocative. I think it's there are lots of problems, efficiency problems, encounters, all kinds of things that can happen for somebody or for a family who's moving from Oklahoma to California under duress with very few resources. Maybe they can get taken advantage of. Maybe they can get into trouble. I think there should be riskier paths, easier paths. I think moving across while borrowing the simplicity and abstraction from the White Castle, I think this could really work and be interesting. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you soon. Have a good one.